Good morning, everyone. Aliza Carpio is a creatively brave. She's an engineer whisperer, inventor, and podcast host of Intuit's Tech Heroes on iTunes. She's also San Diego Magazine's Industry Leader Award winner of 2018. In collaboration with San Diego Design Week, Creative Mornings San Diego is very excited to welcome Aliza to the virtual stage. Please give her a warm welcome.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I am, a lot of people always ask me about, my title and what it is that I do. So just give me a moment to explain. In my role, I work with leaders and teams from across the globe at Intuit to create an amazing tech culture where all of our technologists can do the best work of their lives. I know that's huge, but I have to say, being part of Creative Mornings San Diego, this is my first ever. The dancing, the energy, man, I am humbled that y'all asked me to speak today. So thank you. But before we get started, because I am going to be showing some screens, I want to take a moment to just reflect the fact that we are living and working in unprecedented times with COVID, with the violence and abuse that's happening around our country, where we're all healing from that, where many of our parents and our teachers are struggling to get our kids educated. There are folks that have lost their jobs and many San Diego businesses have closed. But in light of all of that, this today is also about coming together as a community where we're learning, sharing, and connecting with each other. And I thank you for being here and taking the time to be part of Creative Mornings San Diego and San Diego Design Week. Okay, so now with that, I am going to ask you all to do something with me, partly because we cannot be physically together. So I hope you are ready. So first, raise out your hand and towards your camera, go ahead and put it out there like you're gonna shake someone's hand. So, let's all pretend like we're shaking someone's hand and meeting them for the first time. Now, the next gesture that I'd love to ask you all to do is a thumbs up, because these times, many of us are going to need some cheering on. And then finally, I'd like for us to make a heart symbol. And again, put that up in the camera. Thank you. Now, all of this is about creating a continuum, relating to each other and connecting with each other no matter where we are. Now, before I also get started with the rest of my talk, I'm going to try something, and it's a grand experiment. And for those who may know me out there, I'm all about grand experiments. I don't know if it's going to work because I have tried doing happy birthday on Zoom, and it's been failing disastrously. But we're going to do this in movement. So thank you for all the dancing. So we're going to try this. So we're first going to clap twice and do 2 snaps, clap twice and do 2 snaps. It's going to feel like this. Okay, so we're all going to do that. So ready? My snap isn't working so well. Now, as we're doing this, I'm going to ask you all to add ha. So on your second snap, so it'll go like this. Ha. Okay, thanks everyone. I know that was like a little silly maybe, but it's just getting the blood flowing. Now, why did I have you all do that? Now, the reason why I had you do that is because this month's topic is spectrum. And with our voices and our claps, what we created was a continuum where each of you played a critical role in being a feature in this continuum, adding variety, adding your version, adding the diversity, which creates the next series of continuum. Now, this word, spectrum, I decided not to go with the physics definition of it, which has to do with prism and light waves, but instead I'm going to talk about the non-physics definition. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this. A spectrum is a condition that is not limited to a specific set of values, but can vary across a continuum. Spectrum is also a broad range of varied but related ideas or objects, the individual features which tend to overlap in order to form a continuous series or sequence. Now, when I learned about the topic for this month, and the Creative Mornings group reached out to me, man, I was definitely stumped. Especially in the beginning, I'm like, oh my gosh, what? One word, and then just talk about whatever and how I can interpret it. So I decided I'm just going to go ahead and interpret it as in my own way, put my own twist to it, and start with a story. So I hope you all are ready. So we're going to start with this story, and it is a story about us, about each of you here taking part in Creative Mornings, but also in taking part of San Diego Design Week. As you are here, you are taking part in a continuum of our story. And our hope is to inspire you to take part and be involved in future San Diego Design Week. It is also a story about impact, driven by a cause that is based on a belief that San Diego has so much to celebrate in terms of design and the maker space. San Diego is rich in its binational culture, and San Diego has amazing venues for creating, innovating, and design. I know that's my San Diego pitch there. So how did I get involved in San Diego Design Week? About a year ago, and it feels so much longer than that. In August of 2019, Lexi O'Banion, who was the creative director at Mingay Museum in Balboa Park, approached me about a vision. And it was to create San Diego's first Design Week. So just so you know, I am from engineering. And I had to actually do some research on what Design Week was. And as I heard more and more from Lexi, I Googled more and more, and I saw the dream. And I saw how much she believed in this dream and how this is going to bring the community of designers, technologists, crafters, makers, and builders together. And I thought, man, it's beautiful. I also saw that it was an opportunity to bring San Diego center stage in a world of design and to be seen as best in class. Now, before COVID, and again, seems so long ago, it was in February, I had the opportunity to speak at San Diego Magazine's Behind the Brands event in downtown, where I mentioned that we, San Diegans, need to stop apologizing or putting down San Diego as not being a true city or just being a town and not being big enough. I joined Lexi's belief, and it became mine too. Now, with that declared belief, you will attract others. And I remember clearly going to meet the various thought leaders that Lexi put together. I did bring another thought leader, Linda Nario from Intuit. She's a design technologist with me. And we met at Stacy Kelly's place of work. And around a dining table, I was able to facilitate a discussion with leaders like Susan Merritt. Lexi obviously was there, Stacy Kelly, Rob Sidner, Linda Nario, and Patricia Quay. It was an amazing group of San Diego thought leaders who were passionate in their belief that San Diego was ready for this, that we can create a San Diego Design Week that bridges both physical and across disciplines. Now, after that first meeting, over the following months from that first encounter, we met a few more times where we shaped the belief and iterated on ideas. And from here, we started to bring other people to the party, including Amanda Weisfield from Intuit San Diego's design studio, and each member or group like the agency Basic, and by the way, Basic is amazing, brought their own belief, which led to more innovative ideas, which led to more pieces of the puzzle to come together. At some point, we just started working towards the impact we wanted to make here in our city. And we wanted to execute locally and join the Design Week movement globally. Now, I just shared with you the sequence in the story of how about our journey for San Diego Design Week. And now I want to share a framework that brings together the elements of San Diego Design Week in a movement together. I just mentioned how declaring a belief has led to impact and innovation. Now, this is called the Diffusion of Innovation model, and I'm sure many of you have seen this and know well about it. but I really like how it illustrates a continuum. So in any innovation or product that's released to the world, there is a curve that starts with a small number of innovators. So those are your thought leaders. Those are the people that got things going. And then this curve continues to the early adopters. Now, these are the folks that the moment the iPhone was invented and put out there, they were the ones who stood in line, or those who stood in line or camped out for the first flat screen TV. Now, this curve continues because the early majority are those that go, I'm seeing some people with whatever the device or product, I better get on that. The late majority folks, or those are the folks that are starting to look around and say, I think I'm late to the game, but I better start investing in this. Now, your laggards, the 16%, those are the people that basically their solution no longer exists. So those are the people that hung on to a rotary phone or hung on to antennas as their way to get signal for their TVs. Now, the arrow that I'm showing here is really between the early adopters and early majority. Once you hit like a 15 to 16%, this is really where products take hold and where a movement will truly take shape across the masses. When you believe what you believe and declare that with all your heart, you will attract others who believe what you believe. And you start to create a community who will join and take action with you. Now, people will do things that prove what they believe. In this framework, the diffusion of innovation model, you can see how a spectrum unfolds. Now, there's an awesome TED Talk by Simon Sinek on how great leaders inspire. And if you like this innovation model and some of the things I'm talking about around belief, please do watch that, because you're going to see that I leverage a lot of his brilliant insights. Now, we've been talking about San Diego Design Week and the journey of that and how it started with a belief, and now it's a reality. But all along the way, we had to innovate. And I have to tell you, COVID was nowhere near our plans. And definitely had to iterate on the experience that we're all providing for the city. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share a story from history, which illustrates the same framework of having a belief that is declared and attracting others who believe what you believe, and how this leads to innovation, action, and impact, which creates a continuum. And as you make an impact and others who believe what you believe join, the community comes together to further the innovation, which deepens the impact overall. So here's the story. And of course, there you go. In the summer of 1963, in the middle of August, 250,000 people showed up in Washington, D.C. to hear Dr. Martin Luther King speak. There was no email, no evites, no Twitter, and no Facebook where you could post this event. So how did it happen? How did 250,000 people get on buses, trains, in their cars, and get there? Now, Dr. Martin Luther King told people what he believed, and everyone, all 250,000 people, took his cause and made it their own. They showed up for themselves, for what they believe America should be and could be. It was greater than the strife between races. I'm going to take a moment here to talk about the belief. The belief here was that there were two types of laws that were made by man and laws that were made by a higher power. And until the laws made by man are consistent with the laws made by the higher power, will we actually have a just world? And this is where the I Have a Dream speech was shared. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Now, Dr. Martin Luther King became the cause. It attracted the masses who have the same belief to join the movement and make an impact. It went beyond any physical border, and each person who believed and joined this cause was part of the continuum. Each was part of creating the spectrum. I'm going to pause right here because I I definitely did a reach here with Dr. Martin Luther King, but it really is about that belief and sharing that, declaring it. Now, the belief that was started by Lexi O'Banion from Mingay brought the community of thought leaders together and members together to create this opportunity called San Diego Design Week. And each of us brought our belief in it, which brought more ideas, more partners, and more synergy. Each of our beliefs are part of a spectrum that provides diversity in thought, ideas, and approach. And although we came from different backgrounds with a variety of ideas, we were able to weave together an experience that continues and extends each other's ideas that hopefully all of you have taken part in these past few days. So with that said, let's bring it together. We started with a belief that when you believe, this will lead to attracting others to believe for themselves and join your cause, which leads to innovation, diversity of ideas, which leads to impact, and it becomes its own beautiful, continuous cycle, further creating the next series of innovation and diversity of ideas. So I leave you with this, and I have a request. Hold on a second. I'm trying to get to my next slide. My request of each of you is I ask you to consider taking a deeper involvement in our San Diego community, whether it's for the Future Design Week, we'd love to have you, or even a more bold and ambitious cause, to dig deep and find that belief that you want to declare, and to add your voice and take action. You are empowered to design how you want to innovate and be impactful, to take your belief and execute locally in order to influence globally. And I leave you with this last question. What will be your story of impact? And how will you continue to be part of the San Diego continuum? Thank you.
There's some real clap noise. Thank you so much, Aliza. That was awesome. And it's so fun to hear how the just connection to the theme, and also just how transformative. I love when people have an idea and other people come together and we see it realized in live and living color. And you know, Creative Mornings is no different here in San Diego. That's a very similar story to how we believed in creativity locally and believed more community was needed around the theme of creativity. And look at us now, 6 years into that journey. 40,000 people have come to the events over the years, and we're so proud to be part of the design community here in San Diego. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that story. As with all of our talks, we always want to make room for Q&A and for a discussion around the theme. And so in order to do that, what we will do is we will, we're going to ask you down on the bottom of your participant panel in Zoom, oh, actually, right? I think it's on the bottom. You should be able to raise your hand to ask a question. And so if you have a question for the speaker, please raise your hand. And we will monitor that and unmute you so that you can ask your question. And we will direct questions as they come in, and we will go from there. So who has a question? While we're waiting for a question, I have a question for you, which is, what has been your favorite part? So that it's always, there's so much work brought into bringing events to life and these types of experience. What has been kind of your favorite moment so far this week as Design Week has come to fruition?
I think it's about the fact that, I'll be honest, it's about the resiliency of the group. That's been my favorite part. None of us would have predicted COVID. None of us. We had ideas around people taking tours, field trips. None of us knew that we were going to have to switch it up and go virtual. And yet the true spirit of each of the team members, the agency, Basic, and others, even Intuit. We were going to have you all come to our campus, do a bunch of things. And by the way, there is a workshop that they're doing that benefits the Black Chamber of Commerce. It was just amazing how we all came together and really iterated on that and pivoted. Who would have known that even until now, we're still in COVID, right? At one point, they're like, no, it'll pass. It'll be good by summer. And yet here we are. So that's been my favorite part. I am also floored by the fact that we have chefs and just the variety. I know Yomar is did a calligraphy workshop or is doing a calligraphy workshop. Just the variety in that spectrum is also amazing.
I love that. That's exciting. We have a question in the chat for you. How has your engineering background structured or affected your belief system?
So as an engineer and growing up as an engineer, it is always about black and white, right? We are not great at gray areas. Now, my belief system has always been the same. I definitely have people that I look up to, figures in history, but also figures within my own family. But in engineering, it is about solving big problems that can be impactful for the world. And so my belief system is very closely related to what I do and what fulfills me. As engineers, we solve problems and we hope that we can change the world for better.
That's awesome. Another question for you from the chat. Can you share some of your lessons learned about reaching out and bringing together so many of us in the San Diego community for Design Week?
I have to say that Lexi O'Banion would probably be better at that, because what I ended up bringing was into the fold. So I was actually asked to be more a facilitator. I am also an innovation catalyst, which means I within Intuit and outside of Intuit, I am an innovation coach. I coach a lot of startups as well. And as part of that, my role was to facilitate and get things going using design thinking principles. For me, I think being able to, I'll be honest, I was the odd kid out. Like I don't even know if they still do this in Sesame Street, but there was that thing with like boxes, and then they're like, which one looks different, right? And, and then you go, oh, it's that person who's, bouncing a ball. I was definitely the different person, because I came in to these conversations and discussions where everyone was coming from a fine arts background, museum, and I'm like, I'm an engineer, I can code stuff. And so I definitely would say, I wouldn't be able to answer that because it definitely was Lexi and the leaders I mentioned, like Patricia Quay and Susan Merritt and Rob Sidner, that brought people along. And then the folks I did bring along was Intuit, where we are the founding sponsor for San Diego's Design Week. And so super proud of that because, we're forging something together in the city.
That's great. What advice do you have for someone that deals with a lot of imposter syndrome?
So in tech, that is definitely the word that we always hear. Can you say the question again? Because I'm going to probably answer it differently.
Yeah. What advice do you have for someone that deals with a lot of imposter syndrome?
Internally, and I said this in a recent webinar, so I'm going to start with internal. Internally, one of the things that we have to stop doing, whether you're a woman or a man, is that we have to stop saying and telling ourselves what we are not, but instead tell ourselves what we are. You don't seem to understand that when I interview, especially college students for an internship at Intuit, some of the first things they'll tell me is, oh, I'm not good at this. Oh, you want me to code in Java? I really just know JavaScript. But instead, actually tell yourself that I can do this, and I know I can do this better than you. So telling yourself what you are. The second thing is that I say this all the time, whether it's in Zoom meetings or in physical meetings. When you see someone struggling, or when someone says, hey, this is my idea, instead of trying to compete and up them one or add your idea to theirs, take a moment to actually say, okay, that was amazing. That was brilliant. Let's hear a bit more. And opening that door, I have to tell you, when you do that, there is definitely this thing that changes in that person. And hopefully that person will pay it forward and do the exact same thing. Imposter syndrome is never going to go away.
Yeah.
All of us have these freaking conversations in our head and in our hearts. But the thing is that when you collaborate, when you work with others, they are asking you to be a part of it because there is something in there that is so valuable that you have, and only you have that. So I hope that helps.
That's great. So we do have someone that raised their hand. So I'm going to unmute Devin. Devin's got a question for you.
There we go.
Hey, Devin.
Hi. I had a question about, you talked a lot about like problem solving thing, and that's a big part of the knitting industry. Can you kind of talk a little bit about your process through that?
The process of problem solving, just in general?
Like how you approached it, or approached it in this case.
In San Diego Startup Week?
Yeah.
So when I'll start with the story that, when we all first came together, and that was the first time I saw all of these thought leaders, right? And everybody was just so excited. But the first thing that we need to do, and I'm going to be using design thinking principles, which is called, at Intuit, call it design for delight. And the first thing that you want to do, and there are 3 principles. The first thing that you want to do is actually understand the problem or the opportunity. And that is called deep customer empathy. And I actually had to listen to each and every one of those folks that I mentioned, the Rob Sinders of the world and the Patricia Quays of the world, because they were coming at it at all different angles. But you need to actually at some point bring them together. And so I needed to understand. So I did impromptu interviews to say, if you, and I went ideal state, by the way. You can start with the problem, but I went to the ideal state. If you could see, feel, and hear what San Diego Design Week is going to be like at that vision, what would it look like? And so we started with ideal state. We also did the problem statement, which is, why are we together? And that's huge. Understanding the why is huge. And so we ended up writing a problem statement, which starts with the I statement and ends with the feeling. So you start with that. So deep customer empathy. The second thing that we did after I interviewed everyone and I got their perspectives is then we had to go broad to narrow. Now we put up stickies. I brought stickies. I know Stacey Kelly and her work had stickies and poster paper, and we basically went as broad as we can. Every idea in the sun. Don't discount it, even the crazy ones. So we had to go broad and then narrow. And we had to do that a few times, just so you all know, because there was so much creativity in the room and there was so much that everyone wanted to do. So we had to narrow. Now, the last thing that we did, which I'll be honest, was really, really hard, which is not necessarily that we did, but the last principle in terms of problem solving and using design thinking is called rapid experimentation with your customers. And what you're supposed to do is actually do cheap experiments, things on paper, a clickable prototype like on PowerPoint. And what you're supposed to do is get that in front of folks and get their feedback. And I know Lexi and others did. And I know at Intuit we did. We got some feedback of what would be really cool as a workshop in order to test assumptions and implications. So let me just wrap that up. So there's 3 parts. Deep customer empathy to understand the problem or ideal state. Going broad to narrow, so you don't narrow to your solution until you go broad with as many ideas. And then the last is you experiment cheaply. And I don't know if you all know, but Tom Chi, you probably all know the story, but Tom Chi from Google, he was the inventor of Google Glass. I don't know if you all know how long it took for their team to create that first prototype. I don't know, Devin, do you know? It was 45 minutes.
Wow.
And it was all like between tape and wire and, whatever they could find. So it wasn't weeks. And that's really the most important thing is, test your ideas and start having that experimentation mindset. Thanks for the question. That was a good one.
Great question. We've got a couple more in the chat. I'm a native San Diegan and have seen the city change over the course of years. It used to be known as a quiet, sleepy town. So what is the perception now of this city from a world point of view? Thanks, Carla, for your question.
Oh gosh, that is like asking me how would we, you know, how would we get rid of poverty? It is definitely. I went to UCSD. I came from Tokyo. And I have to tell you that San Diego was not my first city. I actually was accepted to NYU, and that was that was where I wanted to go. But my mom, when we were doing our college tour, definitely said San Diego looks safe. I like that it's a little slow. And I have to say, I have to say that yes, we've changed. I live in North Park, and the face of North Park has definitely changed. But there's a few things that people should know about San Diego that is super exciting. I don't know if you all know that there are over 200. There are over 200 satellite offices of big companies here. That includes Intuit, Google, Amazon, Raytheon, and the list goes on and on. I also don't know if you realize that 1/3 of our businesses in San Diego, the backbone of San Diego or of our country, are small businesses. And that keeps growing. Unfortunately, with COVID, we definitely have had some businesses shut down. What I did leave. Okay, I'm just going to say this because this is honest truth. I did leave San Diego right after graduating and did the whole Bay Area thing for a couple of years, but I did come back. And the reason why I came back was, I have to be honest, this is a place, and Neil and I talk about this from oh my God, I just forgot what his group is called. Neil and I talk about how in San Diego, you can have an amazing taco and do tech. So we always talk about tech and taco here, but I absolutely love how we've grown, but we've still managed to maintain that small town feeling through the small businesses that we have. I absolutely love living in North Park, that I can walk to my local coffee shop that maybe seats 10 people. But I also love the fact that you can go as big, in terms of a company like Google or Intuit here in San Diego. Hope that answers that question.
Thanks. We got a question from Aaron and David. It says, being creatively brave, have you spent a lot of time creating your own professional spaces, roles, or that did not exist before?
Yes. So what's hilarious, thank you for asking that. I do have a blog article out there on my Medium, which is my own journey and how I actually been able to create it. And just so you all know, I wrote my job description. The only thing that my boss had was the title. So I wrote my own job description. I definitely did some research out there, and I've written the last 2 positions I've written my job description. And the only reason why I've been able to do that is that I have taken every opportunity that was posed in front of me. I have done marketing, which I have to be honest. After 18 months of that, I realized I love building things. So I was the social media manager for TurboTax, when we first launched with Twitter and Facebook. And I've been a product manager, a dev manager, but I've also done things that is about the passion that I have and interest, which is to help small businesses. So I do pro bono work for micro businesses that are female-led. And the reason why I have so much passion for that is because I don't know if you all know this, but about 60% of the women who are small business owners that will ask for funding will not get it. Not in the first round or not even in the second round. And there are many, many stories like that. And I want to be able to be impactful in our city and sometimes beyond. I normally just do pro bono work here in San Diego, but I want to be able to help them because I know in micro businesses, what you're doing is you're taking out the trash, you're doing your own inventory, you're caring for your customers, you are, tagging your items. Everything is you, and a little bit helps.
Well said. We got a great question here from Ruby. Where do you go for inspiration and innovation? Are there any role models, books, websites, etc.?
Yes. So there's a few things that I'd love to share. One of them is a book called Thank You for Being Late. And that's by Friedman. I will say that I love that book. He was also the writer of The World is Flat.
Mm-hmm.
Between the world is flat and thank you for being late, Facebook was invented. And so he definitely caught up with Facebook on our second book. I love that book because it really ties together the environment, engineering and technology, the creative, all together in one. And and human behavior. Absolutely love that. I also want to share with you all that one of the things that I absolutely do is I am a YouTube fanatic, and I'm constantly going in there searching for crazy things. Everything from a review on something to how would you code something, because every single person has a different perspective. Now, before COVID, I definitely went to museums, but most of my inspiration actually comes from kids. I also am a coach for some of the coding camps here in San Diego, and it is so true that they ground me. They ground me because I get stuck sometimes, and I think we all do, about being adults and going, I got to go to the next meeting, I got to deliver this, and here's my project plan. And what they basically get me down to is, I love eating, a snack that is called, oh, by the way, I love making snacks with kids. So one of my favorite snacks is ants on a log, which is,
Quality.
celery with the peanut butter and then raisins, but they definitely ground me. And so coaching them in coding definitely helps because they ask the most basic questions, but man, it really is a breath of fresh air. I always call them minty because it definitely helps me be minty. So people are my biggest inspiration, but I absolutely love the book. Thank you for being late. And then the last book that I will mention to you are by the Heath brothers, which is Switch When Change is Hard. And there are and then just quickly, I'll just let you know in the book, there are 3 things that you need in order for change to happen successfully. One is you need the writer. And the writer is the one who actually provides the vision. The second is what the writer sits on, which is the elephant. And the elephant is about the emotion and being able to say it's values and purpose driven. And then the last is the path. So you need, as a writer in your elephant, you need to give people a path so that they can see that they can do it themselves and that it's possible.
Thank you. Great question. Jordan asked, can you tell us a little bit more about the role of an innovation coach?
Oh, yes. So an innovation catalyst at Intuit, and there is a great HBR article, a Harvard Business Review article, and you can just put innovation catalyst into it in Google and it'll come up. So an innovation catalyst is a role, and it is a role where you do have to go through training. There's a level 1 and level 2, and you are expected when you become an innovation catalyst to use 10% of your time. That's about 4 hours a week to coach within your team and outside of your team, to dedicate 10% to help teams move fast using the design principles that I mentioned of customer empathy, going broad to narrow, and then rapid experimentation. So as a coach, and by the way, because I also do this outside, I definitely help with my Startup XX. I don't know if you all know that. That's the startup incubator at UCSD's Rating School where women are the CEOs. And so one of the key things that I always coach on is, do you know the problem that you are solving? And then do you understand your customer? And those are the top 2 things that I always coach on. And I'll be honest, all of us get into a rut where we're just coding away or creating a solution or creating that pitch and forgetting to step back and understand the motivations our customers have or the audience that you have before you actually go at it.
Awesome. We got another question here. Do you understand the problem? Oh, wait, no, that was something you just said. Any other questions for people? Good thing I didn't just start reading the chat and then look like a silly goose over here. So does anybody else have any questions for Aliza this morning?
Ooh, by the way, these are no joke, not easy.
No one's slow. No one's giving you slow pitch questions. They're all very intense.
You weren't asking me chocolate or vanilla.
Yeah, maybe Jessica Powers asked, what kind of partnerships are you most excited about through the rest of the quarter?
I'm actually trying to seek partners. I'm finally able to kind of think about how I want to tackle the problem of the brain drain in San Diego from universities. So I'm actually always looking for partners. And I know when I did the talk recently in February before COVID, I was actually looking for people who would join me. And I did get a couple of folks on LinkedIn. I really want to figure out how do we stop our college, the folks that, graduate from college, whether it's engineering or design, from leaving our city and from making impactful changes here. So I'm actually looking for partners. So if you want to partner, would love to figure this out. But that is still my dream, is to figure out how can we as a community stop that brain drain.
Awesome. And I think we just got the perfect last question for you from Danielle. Favorite tacos in San Diego?
Oh my God, tacos de corazón, which is, and people are going, where is that? Well, it is actually a food truck outside of Fall Brewery. And he's there from Thursday to Sunday, and he makes the best portobello mushroom taco, as well as his dirty taco. It's my favorite. My second favorite is El Zarape. They make a really great carne asada taco.
That's awesome.
Of course, I will never let this ever die. But you guys, I came from Tokyo, and I remember my roommate saying, you need to have a Rubio's taco because you've never had it. So I will still always have my heart with Rubio's.
That's awesome. That's a good summary of tacos in San Diego. So you kind of hit speaking of spectrums, I think we hit the spectrum on tacos.
On tacos.
So that's awesome. Well, can we all give a virtual round of applause to Aliza for being with us this morning? That was awesome. Your talk was fantastic. The Q&A was fantastic. Thank you for sharing so much insight into your mindset, your thinking, and your experience here in San Diego. We're so grateful that you've been here with us for Creative Mornings as a part of Design Week this morning.
And thank you all for inviting me. And I love seeing all the faces in the audience. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, with that, everybody, that concludes this event. And we're just so thankful for everybody that has been with us this morning. Thank you so much.